I've got all these boxes checked. I've got the house, I've
Yay.
got the cars, I live in the neighborhood.
Stupid boxes.
Yes. And
They always trip me up.
yeah, exactly. And so the reality is we run into a lot of guys who, despite all that, don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel like they're living a life of significance. Are they even doing the right thing? Are they wasting away chasing
Sure.
something else that isn't what would give them the most satisfaction in life? And if folks dug a little bit deeper, they'd realize I'm stuck in a rut. I'm in this repetitive behavior pattern
Yes.
that is not productive for what I want to do in life.
You're about to meet my new good friend, Jerry Dugan. Jerry helps employees, CEOs, supervisors to quell quiet quitting, fun thing to say, and also help people to keep their best employees and to stop the real quitting that's going on right now. By the way, Jerry is one of the nicest people I've ever met. If you don't like Jerry Dugan, well, you may be a bad person. Listen in. Do more by doing less. With me, Charles Alexander, for small business owners, startups, and busy folks. Dude, you've been doing a podcast forever. You were a top tier guy, a healthcare organization, helping bring in new employees, get them through orientation, training, and now you are Beyond the Rut. By the way, love that friggin' name. So tell us, because people listening, watching, a lot of them have employees or contractors. What's the concept you are trying to help folks understand with Beyond the Rut, not just within themselves, but within their employees?
Yes. So on the personal level, a lot of us, I heard this guy say that a lot of people aim at nothing and hit it with amazing accuracy. Or
Yes,
the
great call.
famous, Wayne Gretzky quote is that you don't make any of the shots you never take, or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah. So Beyond the Rut, the podcast that's been around since 2015, I started with two other friends of mine. And our desire was to help men who are between 35 and 45 years old. They're married, they've got kids,
Sure.
they have a leadership role somewhere in their company, whether they're the business owner or they're in a corporate environment. They're in some kind of leadership role. So what a lot of us would see as arriving or moving on up. You found success in the sense.
Sure.
And all
I
these
made
other
it.
boxes. Yeah, exactly. I've got all these boxes checked. I've got the house,
Yay.
I've got the cars, I live in the neighborhood.
Stupid boxes.
Yes. And
They always trip me up.
yeah, exactly. And so the reality is we run into a lot of guys who, despite all that, don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel like they're living a life of significance. Are they even doing the right thing? Are they wasting away chasing
Sure.
something else that isn't what would give them the most satisfaction in life? And if folks dug a little bit deeper, they'd realize I'm stuck in a rut. I'm in this repetitive behavior pattern
Yes.
that is not productive for what I want to do in life. And then on top of that, they're probably chasing somebody else's definition of success. And it's not until they take that step back, they kind of look up and realize, wait, I am in a rut. And then they kind
Mm-hmm.
of, let's look forward now. What does success look like for me in my faith journey, in my family life, in my fitness levels, both emotional and physical?
Sure.
My finances. Everybody says you got to chase $1 million, but what if I don't need $1 million every year? What if I need half that, or a
Yeah.
quarter of that, or not even a fraction? I think there was an article that showed that the sweet spot was $75,000 a year. You have
Dude,
everything.
where does it, and I've read that many times over. Sounds good. I'd be
Yeah.
curious how they came to that number, but yeah, I've seen that, and I mean, it's pretty easy to understand and believe.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole study behind, but I think it boiled down to you have enough money to cover the things you need, ranging from health coverage to life insurance to a roof over your head in a decent neighborhood, a car that runs. Yeah.
You could get Netflix,
Yes. Yeah.
couple of cheap steaks at Aldi.
Yep. If you want to take the family out for dinner, you can go ahead and do that too. And
Yeah, here comes
there's at least,
Applebee's.
yeah, and there's at least one good vacation in there
Right.
somewhere. And they say 75,000 is kind of the sweet spot. I don't know if that's take home or gross, and I'm sure it varies depending on where you live in the United States or around the world. Yeah, it was like you don't need as much as you think you do to really do well. Now, thinking forward, in retirement, you probably want to sustain that. So there's that. But and the other F, future possibility. So what do I want to become? Who do I want to be when I'm like? For me, it's a little bit more morbid. It's like at the end of my life, what do I want to be known for? And what matters most to me? Do I care more about what my family feels about me and connects with me, or do I care more about my boss? or that person down the street or the Joneses, whoever the heck they are.
Right.
Uh, and so that was beyond the rut. Like, how do we help people who are listening in, specifically in that demographic? But if more people pick up on it, that's great too, which the reality is, I think half my audience is women, like power women. They're women, single or not, I don't know, but it's about 50-50 split. And not everybody listens as a Christian, but a lot of people find a lot of inspiration out of the show because I've shared about 300 plus stories of people who felt like that in life. They were stuck. They had all the things that checked the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they made a pivot of some kind. For some, it was they quit the corporate job, started their own company. For others, they just put in better boundaries. Like, this is what is non-negotiable. I will not miss family events.
Right.
I will not compromise my core values to reach the bottom line. Whatever it is, they made that adjustment. Maybe they changed career fields. They stayed in corporate America, but they went from being a finance person to a training person, or from a training person to a nurse, whatever it is. They made a pivot that gave them more joy in the work they do. It aligned better with their core values, all those things. And so that's been the podcast. And then from there, I started a company called BTR Impact, which helps leaders boost employee retention and engagement within 90 days. So very specific compared to what I had before with the podcast alone. And my thinking around there is I want to help leaders have that beyond the rut type of impact. And the thing that's in front of everybody's faces right now as a leader is this notion that people are quitting on me. People have quietly quit and they stuck around, or they've actively quit and they left for the competition.
Sure.
And if more people do that, I'm going to have to do their job and mine. I'm already burning out. How do I stop the bleed? How do I get them to stay, get more people to come on board so that I enjoy a better balance of life, and that everybody else who works with me also sees where we work as a great place to work. So there's that desire to create that legacy where they work. And I firmly believe that a lot of us are just wired that we can't even think about quality of life and balance until we actually get the work part that we've tied so much of our identity into, until we've got that kind of anchored down and,
Sure.
and grounded in a sense. And then once that you get that breathing space, you can look up and say, oh, yeah, I really need to think about the rest of my life, like all the different buckets and
Yes.
future and all those things. And how do I find success in those areas? But I just start by helping leaders specifically quell that quiet quitting, quell that verbal quitting,
Sure.
and just stop the bleed. And we say that a lot in emergency healthcare. I was a medic in the Army, and the biggest thing you want to do to save somebody's life is to stop the bleeding. And once you do that, got a better shot at thriving afterwards.
Before we go down the road of looking at leaders and how they can, I love the way you say that too, quell quiet quitting. Let's say that 3 times fast, baby.
Yeah.
But before we even do that, and you just take a quick step back, lots of folks watching, listening might be in solopreneur vibe, work with a lot of people that are overworked, overstressed, over everything, which is how we got to do more by doing less, because you could see everybody overdoing everything. How is it? And you made a great point, and I've made this a few times myself. You're talking about it being morbid, but there's only a few sure things in life, and one of them is that we're not all going to be here forever. It does come to an end, and you get to that idea of what do you want? What's the deathbed scenario? Do you want to? Nobody looks up and says, "Oh, I wish I'd have logged in just a couple more hours. Wish I'd have doom scrolled 5 more minutes on TikTok before I checked out of here," which I'm guessing will be absolutely 0% of anybody. But in their doing that, people end up doing things they wouldn't normally want to do for long periods of time because they're in this rut, but they get into it before they ever know it.
Yes.
So first thing is, what happens that causes us to get in the rut? And then what do you kind of do on an individual basis, not employee basis, to help folks get unstuck?
Yeah. One thing that the original host of the podcast used to say all the time is that a lot of our ruts really start as a groove. So we kind of figure things out. We're like, okay, if I show up and do this every single day, I get this kind of momentum going, and it's kind of like the easy button, and that comfort zone kind of creeps in. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this because it's easier. And it could be things like it's easier to not get up at 5 in the morning to go run for
Hmm.
3.5 miles, which I've been doing. But it's very easy for it to creep back in. Like, well, my buddy Mike just bailed, so I can bail.
Sure. He looks fine.
Yeah, but if he bails 3 days in a row, and I use that as the crutch, then I get into this groove of I don't have to go. I'm doing fine. I've maintained my weight this week, and then all of a sudden I just stop everything, and that's when the rut kicks in. And whether it's our professional life, our family life, our fitness life, or all those elements together, we just hit this groove. We hit the easy button, like Staples likes to say, but it's not a good easy button. It's a bad easy
Mm-mm.
button, and then we just form this habit of yeah, I'm just going to not resist. I'm not going to challenge the status quo. I'm just going to go with the flow. And
Hmm.
before you know it, other people just start to get you to do the things they need you to do for them. And
Yes.
so if you're at a job that you just hate, chances are you've gotten yourself into a rut at that job. It's still a great job. It's still a great place to work, but you've allowed yourself to fall into this trap of I'm going to show up 15 minutes late. I'm going to leave 30 minutes early. It's just the same blah, blah, blah
I'm
routine
going to
every
check
day.
my email 17 times today.
Exactly. Yeah. Rather than show up early, have a plan of what I want to accomplish that's going to move the big boulders first, what's going to help the bottom line for the organization, what's going to strengthen relationships with my coworkers, especially my supervisor. That takes effort. And to have a dialogue with your boss and say, hey, what can I do to lighten your plate this week? Or, hey, here's some priorities I have that I like to knock out this week. What do you think? That takes effort. And then as a leader, to ask people, hey, what's your biggest priority this week? And how can I support you? And just kind of let them self lead. That takes a challenge. And so there's all these different things where like we just get into these habits and we start to despise the world around us, not realizing it's these habits we put into place. Now in the army, I was a medic, but I'd
Hmm.
go on patrols with like the infantry guys. And one thing they taught me was it was something called SILS, SLLS. And I always thought they were saying SEALs until somebody put it in writing. I'm like, oh, SILS. Yeah, doc, it's cute. All right, now shut up. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So it stands for stop, look, listen, smell. So when you're on foot patrol, you're out in the woods, you're out in the wilderness, you can get into that tunnel vision, that groove
Sure.
of like,
Yeah.
okay, I
Yeah.
got a good pace going, I got my breathing just right. It doesn't hurt so much because I've zoned out. But if you do that for the entire like 12-mile patrol or 20-mile patrol, you're probably going to walk right into an ambush or you're going to walk right by the enemy or the
Hmm.
objective and completely miss the whole point of being out there. So every so often, the squad leader or the patrol leader will stop the whole patrol. Everybody takes a knee and you look around. You just really force yourself to pause. You look around. You're listening to what's going on around you because like birds will chirp and they'll fly off when people show up. There are different sounds out there that if you just stop talking and listen, you'll hear that. And then smell. Humans make smells. Yeah, I'm not talking about like body odor, but
Sure.
if you're cooking food, you're going to smell the cook fire. You're going to smell the food aroma. If they're wearing perfume, you're going to smell that. If they're wearing aftershave, those kinds of things, cigarette smoke. So that's from a military perspective. Metaphorically, in our own lives, I personally like to pause one day out of the year at the end of the year, and I really reflect on the entire year. What went well, what didn't go well, why did those things work, why did they not work? Of those things that didn't work, is any of that still important to me? Because where do I really want to go in the next year? What do I still want to go in this direction? Um,
Hmm.
and then with that, what is productive? What's not productive? So I'm stopping and I'm taking a look at all the things that I achieved in the previous year. I'm kind of listening to myself in terms of so I've looked at the past, I'm looking forward. Now I'm listening to myself. What is still important to me based on my last year's experience? What's still important? I don't know where smell fits into this, but I'm making up the analogy on the fly,
Dude,
guys.
it's great. I mean, I stop, look, listen's been there since we were kids. Nobody ever told
Yes.
me to smell anything. That's a good idea.
Yeah. If you're in the woods, great idea. You might smell Bigfoot and like say,
Hey,
I got him. I found
he's
him. But
all, I think I've got this theory that Bigfoot is just this out of focus monster. And every time we take a picture, that's exactly what he's supposed to look like.
oh, wow. That's slick. I never thought of that. Like
I think I
sometimes
stole that. That's probably, I think Mitch Hedberg said that, but now I said it.
wow. Now it's kind of messing with my mind. Like he bends light in such a way that he's
He's
always
just a fuzzy guy.
wow. Man.
So we're
Okay. Anyway.
stop, look,
Yeah.
listening. We're doing this in our personal life. We're getting up, doing the same routine day in, day out. I'm working with a bunch of entrepreneurs, advisors, agents, people that are busy professionals. And before they know it, they've been wherever they are 5 years. The kids have
Yep.
grown, the spouse is kind of doing their own thing. And we're just doing the same thing day in, day out as Groundhog Day. And your advice is what a lot of good advice is: stop, look, listen, smell. We're going to just choose to make it different. And we're going to get out of the rut, get out of the bad habits. So when I'm looking at this and either I've got my own organization, maybe it's small, it's me and a couple of folks, maybe it's even just contractors, VAs, or better yet, maybe I've got 100 people under me, or I'm a busy professional that's mid-level management, or maybe even I'm a CEO. The concept is we've got folks that we now delegate to, which is one of the things I love talking about. Find things you don't want to do, that don't light you up, that are repetitive, that someone else can do but do better.
Yeah.
And I've advocated for a long time, if somebody else can do what you do at 20% of the pay and just do it 80% as well, that's 100% something you should do every time. That's real math. You can do it backwards and forwards. It's scientific. So in doing that though, and I've seen this, I personally worked at a Fortune 500. I have worked at the largest franchise, or one of the largest franchisors in the country. I've worked in higher education. I've had people under me. Some work well, some don't. And we're at a point now where there's a lot of quote unquote, some don't. And we blame everybody but ourselves. This is
Yeah.
nonstop. The number one issue I get from clients of mine: people don't want to work anymore and can't find anybody, and I say excuse, rational, but it's happening. What do we need to be telling these folks about in terms of, do you have a framework? Do you have some tips, some tricks? What do we do?
I created a framework called Tent that really brings all these elements together. And the short story is, why tents?
Yeah,
Uh,
why tent? I love a
so
tent.
I love camping. And oddly enough, I don't use a tent when I go camping. I do a hammock and a tarp, but that's
Oh
not important.
gosh.
Most
Jerry's
people I know,
trying out for Survivor, baby.
yeah, yeah. But normal people use a tent. And one thing I learned in the Army was that the fact about tents that connects with leadership. Tents are mobile. They go where you need them to go, and leaders do the same thing. They meet people where they are in their development levels of their career and so on. Tents are adaptable. So if the conditions in the environment change, you can change how you configure the tent to reinforce it, to tighten it down, all those things. And leaders also need to be masters of change. So as like COVID hit us and changed how business is done around the world, us as leaders have had to change with that. But now the workforce has changed on its expectations of what's that agreement between our commitment to the company and our well-being and our compensation. And so now we've got to adapt to that as well. And then also another thing about tents is that they create this safe environment on the inside for the people who set it up and got in there. And leaders in the same way set up this environment where people thrive. And so those are the three qualities of a tent that
Mm-hmm.
already connect to me as a leader. And then the thing I learned in the Army way back, this is many, many years ago, was that the fastest way to set up a tent is you stake out the corners first. And
Mm-hmm.
once you do that, you put the frame in there and it pops right up and it's nice and secure. So what are those four stakes for a leader? The first one is trust building. You got to build trust with your people. Gallup just issued out, I believe it was a summary of their data they collected in 2023. And in the top 5 for things that employees are experiencing in the workforce, one of the big top 5 issues was that employees still don't trust their leadership right now. Coming out of the pandemic and all the things that were experienced, especially if they had a lot of turnover, there's this distrust among leaders. Well, first stake in the ground, you got to reestablish that trust. Do things that align with your core values, share your core values or your credo with your team. This is who I am. This is how I lead. This is what you can expect. This is where we're going as a team, as an organization. This is the work we do. So establish that clarity of this is who we are. This is who I am. Do you want to be a part of this? Great. This is what I need from you. Are you willing to do that? Yes. All right, let's go. So that clarity, and it's all with building trust. The second stake in the ground is empowering. And that's giving your people all the information they need to make a decision on their own. So you're not the bottleneck. You're not the stopgap. You're not the reason why things don't get done, because you freed up enough information so that your employees and your team members, your contractors, they know that this is the information I can always access. And that's the data we use in this framework or these guardrails to make a decision to benefit the company, the customer, and yourself. So you got to empower your people that way. What are the rules? What's the data? How do I get to that data? And is that data always up to date? And so the more information you can share with people, the faster people can move. And the military does this quite well. And it's the empowerment of the smallest level possible. And it's because we share as much information as we can and secure it. But it's that sharing of information, not just from the top down, but the bottom up and laterally. There's information being shared where there's maybe some structure in place. It's on the decision making process. So empowering in that respect. Delegation is a big thing that comes with empowering. Delegation is one of those cool things that also leads into the next stake in the ground. And that's, as a leader, I'm helping my team navigate towards success. So what are your goals as my employee? What do you want to achieve 5 years from now? What are your big career strokes? What kind of skills do you want to pick up over the next 3 to 6 months? Because I probably have a responsibility area that I can start to hand off to you that'll help develop that skill set. And then on your resume, you can brag, I know how to do XYZ reporting or analysis or project planning. And for me, it's like, great. That's one less project I had to put on my plate. You just multiplied the capability of this team. I don't want you to go, but you also now have a feather in your cap, and I can offer more feathers to put in your cap. So you can always add more skills, and eventually people are going to leave. I think the average tenure of an employee is like 3 to 5 years. So they're going to go anyway.
This sounds like what college football coaches tell recruits coming in, is that, hey, come here. You can leave early for the NFL and make all the money in the world knowing that they are going to leave. But the more the recruits see people's success there, the more they're going to want to come there. And with employees, it'd have to be the same way. So, hey, why do y'all have folks leave every 3 to 4 years? Because we teach them so much cool stuff. They go make bigger, better somewhere else, possibly.
Yeah. And it's just like in business where you need a sales funnel and you get a higher number of qualified leads in your funnel. And then from there, you're qualifying and identifying who the customers are, and you can charge a higher price point. You're delivering a top product and all those things. And leadership's the same way. As an organization, you want to create this funnel that brings in a large amount of qualified candidates in various levels of development. And in time, you just got depth on the bench. You can take a day off. You can take a week off or 2 weeks off. The next person in line is going to take care of things. The team itself is going to do things, get things done, right down to the lowest person on the totem pole. Oh, the last stake in the ground, by the way.
Yeah, I got another T.
Yeah. So intent, T-E-N-T, we've covered trust building, empowering, navigating. Thriving together is that last stake in the ground. And it has a lot to do with recognition. So your people are going to do great work. They're 6 times more likely to stick around if they get regular recognition from you as their leader. And regular recognition, I believe, is at least once a week, at least. And it's got to be genuine. So if you use what's called the SBI model, the situation, behavior, and impact of that behavior, then you're giving authentic, genuine feedback. You're not just saying, hey, great job, Charles. I really appreciate you. It's like
the generic, appreciate what you do here.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, hey, Charles, thanks for having Jerry on the show where he talked about the tent framework. He talked about the SBI feedback model. I never realized there's an actual model that if I apply this to my feedback, whether it's constructive, corrective, or positive, I have a model that just helps me deliver the right information clearly, concisely, and the impact it has on my team is just huge. I can already tell a difference in how my team responds to me when I'm giving feedback. They see it as a gift. Thank you so much. That means a lot more to me or to you probably than, hey, I love your show.
Specific.
You got a great Tennessee voice, man. You know, it's like, even that's specific though. You're like, well, thank you.
But even in doing that, the person giving the compliment, and there's tons of study or just common sense that says you feel better.
Yes.
Which it has a great reverberation throughout. I've been in plenty of places where nobody was ever thanked. And if they were, it was done reluctantly, but you can also see the reverse of that where the boss is in a good mood because they're looking for things to tell people that
yes,
ebbs and flows with it where we're, not hang tight, Jerry.
I think we lost. Yeah.
So let's take a quick step back. We're recognizing people, we're empowering them, letting them navigate. Let's go back to trust real quick. A lot of people that I work with feel like trust is just a given, like they don't have to earn it, or a lot of them think they have it, and you can almost tell, especially or get a chance to speak to the employees, that I don't know. So, what is a quick way that they can first gauge trust, and then secondarily, you the advice is, hey, let's tell them what our core values is and what we're doing here. If they've never really done that, what's the first step to do that?
Yeah. And trust is a funny thing because I have a hard time defining it for folks.
Yeah,
It's it's a leap of faith in a way. It's that I believe that you have my best interest in mind, and I want you to believe I have your best interest and our best interest in mind as well. And that's a very fine balance that's always being poured into or taken away from. And the withdrawals are just way bigger than the deposits that people make. It's like you got to put a lot of effort in to build
mm-hmm.
it. And then the irony is like trust is earned, but if you're a leader, you almost have to like make an investment of trust first. Like I have to give it away first. I have to trust that he will, with the instructions I give, the tools I provide, go do the thing that I'm hoping you go do. And then over time earn the trust of the employee that I do have your best interest in mind as well as the company's, and we're partnering together. So the first thing I love folks to do is as a leader is what is your personal leadership credo? Like what do you, and credo means I believe.
Right.
So I work with clients to help them define that. I have my own personal credo, and the paraphrase of it is I'm a people centered servant leader who believes that individual success and team success go hand in hand. That I also believe that through diversity of thought, diversity of experiences, and including my team on big decisions and on big projects, I'm now equipped as a leader to make a better decision that's much more thorough and beneficial for everyone. And so as a result, people who work with me can expect a collaborative, inclusive work environment where they can thrive as an individual while they're also part of a team that is performing at a high level. And that's a paraphrase, but when I have that and I lead a team, I can share that with them and say, this is my leadership credo. This is what I stand for as a leader. And I give it to them in writing with my little picture on it. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, it's not me doing the Buddy Christ
Sure.
thing, but it's me. It's got my name. It's got my picture. It's got that credo there. And I give that to every new employee who comes on board my team. I give it to a team that I take over. And it just lets them know this is who I am. This is what I believe in. You can hold me accountable to this. I hold myself accountable to it. So if I'm finding that I made a decision I'm not quite happy with, I can go back and look at my credo. Hopefully, I look at it first and say, no, I believe in this. So I'm going to go do this first. And then when I interview people, they're going to ask, hey, what's your leadership style? And maybe, I don't know, I get asked that all the time. What's your leadership style? What's
Mm-hmm.
your leadership credo? They don't say credo. They'll say, what's my leadership philosophy or my leadership
Right.
style? And when I first got asked that and I did not have a credo, it was like, well, I believe in collaboration.
And you just started throwing out all the buzzwords.
Yes, I believe in people growing for success.
Integrity should be in there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm a man of integrity. I love
Yeah.
lamp. I love carpet. It's like Anchorman, I was just pulling stuff off the shelf, and they could tell like Jerry is making this junk up, and I could
Yeah.
see the look on their face like, nope, we are out of here. This guy does not have a leadership style. And once my leader at that time helped me create my own credo. And the next time I interviewed somebody to come work for me, and they asked me the same question, what's your leadership style? And I said, boom. And I was able to rattle off that credo. They're like, where do I sign up?
Yeah.
Like, I
Good
will work
deal.
for free. And I was like, they didn't say that, but I could tell they were hooked. They went, oh,
Nobody else had given them that.
yeah. And it's like, if you can say that, and I've worked with leaders in healthcare where they didn't have a credo either. They were new to leadership, and we developed a credo. And I said, right, in your next team huddle, share this with them, print it off, give it to everybody, and just say, this is who I am. I want to share this with you. Boom, boom, boom.
So
And
we're running tight on time. We're gonna make a quick transition here, but recap and watching, listening, do more by doing less. The whole concept is at some point we're building a team, and
yes,
and even if you plan on solopreneuring forever, there's just stuff you're going to outsource, and a lot of you aren't in that boat. You want to grow an actual team, have people that rely on you, that you work with for a few years, that you help their family. Jerry's laid out a great way to do more by doing less and using the tent method. Let's build a little trust with these people. Let's make an effort. Let's empower them. Let's create SOPs. Let's tell them where all the things are. Let's help them navigate through it. And then finally, let these folks thrive a little bit and know that as you train them, they will leave. And that's exactly, in some cases, maybe that's what you want. So you can keep adding newer and better folks. And that's how you get them, using that college recruitment model. So Jerry, for you, as a question I like to ask, in your world, what should be some things that you should be doing less of right now?
Yeah, for sure. There are quite a few tasks that I have to do as a solopreneur. And I think we were talking about this before we hit record, was building up my reach, adding people to what I do. So the marketing right now, I do the marketing.
Yeah.
I do the social media outreach. I do the webinars. I do the books. I do all the admin pieces. And I know that in the long run, the best use of my time is in training delivery and coaching. Those are the two big things. And then creating podcast episodes and being on podcasts to share more of these concepts. That's the best use of my time. And if I'm focused on just that, I can now do the things I want to do outside of work. I want to go camping at least once a month. And I don't mean like drive up and camp. I mean like hike out for miles, set up camp, sleep in a hammock, eat some dry.
Jerry wants to be on National Geographic.
Everybody laughs when I say I want to be on that show alone, but I'm too social of a person. I might be the first one out. I'm like, hey,
that you drive the crew crazy.
Yes, like
you're
I'm not
alone.
really sick,
no,
guys. I just wanted somebody to talk to. Medic, I'm sick, and they're like, you're not sick. Stop this. That would be me, and so I'd probably be out of the show very quickly.
But that does lead up to the follow-up. What would you do less of? Jerry just listed off probably 15 things. He's a jack of all trades, wearing all the hats. But at some point, as let's say you get a virtual assistant, you use more automation, you use some outreach tools, you use some process to get on more podcasts, that's going to free him up. And he already told us, what's he going to do? He's going to do more of this. He's going to do more of his own. I mean, he already has his own fantastic podcast. He wants to do more podcast guesting. He wants to do more speaking. He wants to do more webinars. He wants to do more training. And best of all, like so many other people, he wants to get out into the woods. I have an extraordinarily large amount of people that want to do 4-day work weeks so they can go hide amongst the trees. It's the little childhood thing we never quite got out of. So Jerry, how can someone find you, my friend?
Yeah, if you go to btrimpact.com, there you'll find links to my workshops, my speaking gigs, as well as the podcast, all are in one spot. And BTR stands for Beyond the Rut Impact, because we want leaders to have that Beyond the Rut impact. So btrimpact.com.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Jerry, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, bud.
Oh, man, my pleasure, Charles. Thanks.
Don't take off just yet. I've created a new program just for you, helping overworked entrepreneurs create their very own 4-day work week in 90 days or less. Look, if you'd rather spend more time with family, friends, traveling, exercising, having the time to do what you want instead of, putting out never-ending fires, tackling another to-do list, and checking email at 9 p.m., then go to my website, yourcharlesalexander.com. If you've created the income you want but don't have the time freedom you deserve, then this is for you. And as always, if you don't, an angel may actually lose its wings. True story. Have a great day.